Welcome. My name is Narayana Montufar. I am an astrologer, artist, and author who finds inspiration in the symbolic language of astrology. As a friendly reminder, you can leave me comments on these videos or you can also ask me questions. I offer birth chart paintings, birth chart readings, Akashic records, as well as tarot readings. And I wrote a book about the moon called Moon Signs: Unlock Your Inner Luminary Power. You can find me on my website, naramon.com. And I also write a lot of articles, which I post on my Instagram, Narayana Montufar. So today I wanted you to bring something that I studied really deeply about the astrology of 2024. By the way, I created a video here on YouTube which speaks about the big energies or the most important transits that we will experience in this year. However, this video is about the retrogrades. So I did not include retrogrades on my first video about the astrology of 2024 because I decided to do one video about all of the retrogrades of this year. I've done extensive work with retrogrades and I'm really surprised at the effect that retrograde planets have on our experience in our birth charts. So I created a guide, which is free to download on my website, naramon.com, in which I speak about the meaning of every single retrograde in 2024, because every single retrograde is always different. So every single retrograde is different. And in this guide, you're going to get specific dates, when the retrogrades begin and end, which are the degrees, because in astrology, the degrees of when a retrograde begins and when a retrograde ends are very important. And you're also going to get which signs are most affected by each one of the retrogrades. So this guide is it's free to you. You can download it on my website, and I'm going to show some slides here. There are there's a little bit of text in here, so bear with me. But if you don't want to take notes, you can just download the guide. This is what I'm going to present to you today is kind of like a big picture version of that. So the slides might look a little intense, but bear with me. And please drop me any questions in the comments. And so here it is. This is the guide that I created for you. And I am fascinated with retrogrades and what they mean, what they bring, the learnings. And so I'm really happy to be talking about this with you today. Again, this is me. You can find me on Instagram, and these are all my services. And this is the retrograde calendar. So right now, you might not be hearing the word retrograde a lot, which is because we're about to enter the only time of the year that there are no retrograde planets in the sky. So that's actually awesome. The only planet that is retrograde now is Uranus, and Uranus goes direct pretty soon. But you will hear the word retrograde a lot starting in April, which is the next time that Mercury goes retrograde. And so this is the calendar. And as you can see, the fall and the winter of 2024 is when we will experience the most amount of retrograde planets all at once. So usually when planets go retrograde, we experience intense transformations, intense changes, and the past comes back to be revised, to be fully processed. And so I see retrogrades kind of like as time traveling cosmic events, and I will explain every single one of them. But this is the calendar, and you will get this slides and more if you download my retrograde guide. Let's begin by explaining or defining what a retrograde is. You will see in a lot of articles and publications when an astrologer or an author is talking about a retrograde, you will hear the word backwards, moving backwards in the sky or something like that. The truth is that the planet doesn't actually move back. It is an optical illusion. From our perspective here on Earth, it seems like the planet is moving backwards. However, it is not. Just like when a car, when you are moving in a car and a car is already moving, when you start moving, a car is already moving and it feels like that car is moving backwards, it's kind of like the same optical illusion, okay? So that's really important to remember. But if you're thinking, oh, if it's an optical illusion, it doesn't have an effect on us. No, that's not what happens. Retrogrades affect us greatly, but we can also work with them. We can also work with them because they bring second chances. They bring the possibility for us to break old patterns specifically. And they give us time to review, revise, rethink, and redo things. So that is the beauty of retrogrades. Also, a planet goes retrograde when it is as far as the sun as it can be. So when the planet is as far of the sun as it can be in the chart, that is when the planet goes retrograde. So that is something really important to remember. That's the astronomy. And also, you can think about it this way. When a planet goes retrograde, it's almost as if it was taking a nap. It's kind of like time out for that planet. And everything that planet rules behaves differently. This is another way to think about retrogrades. So, for example, Mercury, the retrogrades of Mercury are by far the most talked about and most popular because Mercury is the planet that goes retrograde the most because it's always following the sun. And every time it goes as far as it can be from the sun, it goes retrograde. So, for example, in this case, when Mercury is retrograde, everything that Mercury rules, communication, thought process, writing, speaking, and all of that is going to behave differently. And so for us, that feels kind of like intense because we have to like change the way we are thinking. And we're going to talk about the retrogrades of Mercury, but I was just using that as an example. And also, there are two different types of retrogrades. The natal planets, so Mercury, Venus, and Mars, the retrogrades of the natal planets are, or at least we feel them more intensely because they are closer to us. So the closer the planet is, the more noticeable or the more visible the effects are. The other planets, the outer planets, you can think about as like Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto, which are like the farthest. Those retrogrades are still very strong, but the effects happen at a more psychological level. So there are two types of retrogrades: the natal planets and the non-natal planets, or social or outer planets, as you can think about. And also, every single retrograde is different. Why? Because like the planets are always moving, and so, for example, Jupiter. Right? Jupiter goes retrograde once a year, but every single one of its retrogrades is going to have a different flavor. And that is according to the zodiac sign where the planet is, but it also has a lot to do with the connections, the conversations that planet is going to have with other planets. Okay, I think that is good for an introduction. And so you can think about it as like a retrograde is when a planet is taking a cosmic nap. It's behaving differently. And so us humans here on Earth kind of have to adjust to that, to those different vibes. Let's start with Mercury. the retrogrades of Mercury are incredibly important to the astrology of the entire year, because Mercury is so important. It rules how we talk, how we speak, how we communicate, how we think. And so those retrogrades are super important just because of the things that Mercury rule. But also, Mercury always goes retrograde in the same element. So in 2023, Mercury went retrograde in earth signs, which are Taurus, Virgo, and Capricorn. And who doesn't relate to the fact that we had to review, revise, rethink, re-strategize our finances, or the tangible things that sustain our lives? Pretty much everyone I've talked to about this really resonates with the fact that we had to kind of make adjustments, make expenses, review our finances. So that happened in 2023. In 2024, Mercury is going to retrograde in fire signs, mostly, in fire signs. And so the energy is different. The energy is not going to be so tangible. Mercury retrogrades are not going to bring such a tangible change or tangible effects. They're going to be a little bit more felt on an energetic level, because fire relates to creativity, intuition, drive, our ability to come up with new ideas, our ability to get up and get out of bed and do things. So this is really important to remember, that the Mercury retrogrades are going to change quite a bit compared from 2023 to 2024. Also, fire is the fastest of elements. And so these Mercury retrogrades are going to be they're just going to feel like lightning bolts, or kind of just very energetic, things are going to happen really fast. The changes that occur during Mercury retrograde are going to happen faster. And so this is really important to know, because when we're being asked to change the way we think about something, Mercury, we might feel frustrated. We might feel why do I have to change this now? I'm not ready for this. And we might become a little frustrated, because fire rules anger and it rules energy. So that is why it's super important to know that the fire houses in your chart are the ones that are going to experience some sort of transformation, an alchemical change, an energetic alchemical change. On the really positive side, Mercury forms a grand trine every time. So in 2023, formed a grand trine in your earth houses. And in 2024, it's going to form a grand fire trine with your fire houses. And so you can expect changes coming with your initiative, how you begin things, how you go after things, and also with your creativity and your intuition, because that's what fire rules in astrology. And so when I looked at the retrogrades of 2024, I did find some planets echoing in every single one of the retrogrades. And the first one is Venus. Venus ends up getting involved in every single one of the retrogrades of Mercury in 2024, which means that we will continue doing a lot of relationship work, where our relationships are going to transform greatly. And that is especially true with the South Node in Libra, which is ruled by Venus, which I often explain as the cosmic broom. And the other planetary body that's going to be very active during the three Mercury retrogrades in 2024 is Chiron, the wounded healer. And so there is a healing taking place in 2024. So know that our relationships are going to drastically change. right? There will be people coming in and out of our lives, but there's also going to be a healing, a deep healing taking place. And so this is a year to really search for that. If you know you have something holding you back from the past, if you know that you still haven't fully processed a relationship from the past, this is the year in which you can truly find healing. But you have to be willing to get deep down. You have to be willing to go deep, because that is what Chiron requires us to do. And so Mercury retrogrades bring healing, but also change to our relationships as well, because both Venus and Chiron are going to be connecting with Mercury retrograde. And so here, I explained the first retrograde of Mercury, which happens between April 1st and April 21st, and between 27 and 15 degrees of Aries. So if you have anything in the cardinal signs, if you have anything in Aries, Cancer, Libra, or Capricorn, you're going to be feeling this the most. And so I think this retrograde is going to pack a punch, because it's also happening during eclipse season. And so this is a time to really watch your mouth, to be careful with what you say. Because since this retrograde is going to conjunct Chiron, if we get too flustered with the changes we need to make, if we get too frustrated with the misunderstandings, with the miscommunications, and everything that happens during Mercury retrograde, like your tech not working, like people canceling meetings and things like that, it's really important to allow that anger to kind of like work through your body by working out, by exercising. Let's say something happens at work. Well, get out and take a brisk walk and then come back, because this is the thing. When Mercury goes retrograde in Aries, which is a Mars-ruled sign, we're quick to anger and we express it. We're just impulsive. Everyone is going to be feeling that regardless of their sign, especially the cardinal signs. So be careful, be mindful. The fact that this retrograde overlaps with eclipse season, it means that we're going to need more rest. We're going to need to take a step back instead of trying to do so much, or instead of going fast, going through life in a really fast manner. And because this is the first retrograde that truly begins in 2024, right? We had Mercury retrograde ending on January 1st, but pretty much this is the first retrograde. So it's going to pack a punch. Okay, and as you see here, Mercury is also going to conjunct the North Node of the Moon. And so around April 25th, towards the end of the retrograde. And so there will be fated events, fated messages, unexpected situations coming to us during this time. So when the North Node of Destiny aligns with Mercury, it just feels like destined. Destiny is at play. And so trust that. If anyone comes into your life around April 25th or around this time during the Mercury retrograde, well, know that it was meant to be. Or if anything ends, it was meant to be. The second retrograde of Mercury happens in two signs. So this is where the earth element truly leaves. The earth element from 2023. Because it starts in Virgo and ends in Leo. I think that when Mercury goes retrograde in two signs, instead of just one, we feel the effects more. We feel the effects more because we have to we have to change more. And you probably felt this in this last retrograde of Mercury in 2023 that happened in Capricorn and then Sagittarius between December 12th of 2023 and January 1st of 2024. That retrograde was intense for a few reasons, but it was also because it was happening in two signs. So we have the same thing happening now, between August 4th and August 28th. This means that the energy shifts. So during the first part of the retrograde, we're going to have the mutable signs feeling more affected. So that is Gemini, Virgo, Sagittarius, and Pisces. But then Mercury goes into Leo. And then that shifts the energy completely. And then the fixed signs will feel more affected. So like Taurus, Leo, Scorpio, and Aquarius. I think that it can be really useful. However, this retrograde can be very useful because Mercury retrogrades in Virgo are just amazing for fixing things, are just incredible for literally grabbing your list of to-dos and start changing and start creating something and crossing things on your to-do list. So that is an amazing opportunity to get stuff done, to fix things. I also personally like doing cleanses whenever Mercury was retrograde in Virgo, because Virgo is the sign of purification. And it is the sign that helps us attain a mind, body, spirit connection. And I think that doing juice cleanses during that time is it's a very purifying experience for the body. And then when the retrograde shifts to Leo, well, that is a little bit more about creativity. It's a little bit more about knowing that we are changing the way we're giving birth to new ideas. Because Leo is ruled by the sun, and it is a creative sign. But we also know that Leo kind of blows up a little bit when it doesn't get what it wants. Leo energy wants what it wants. And so this is a time to really embrace, once the retrograde moves into Leo, it is a time to really embrace creativity, not with an end result, not trying to make the best painting of all times, for example, but to allow yourself to try different palettes, try different colors, try different creative hobbies. Because what needs to happen is that your creativity is getting reignited. But in order for that to happen, you have to be willing to change, to change your medium. This is just an example, right? To change, maybe you won't do painting, maybe you do sculpture, and that ignites something. And so this retrograde in the summer, even though it packs a punch, I feel like it can be extremely useful. The third retrograde of Mercury happens in Sagittarius. So it echoes themes from this past last retrograde in 2023. Mercury doesn't like being in Sagittarius because Mercury rules Gemini, which is the opposite sign. So this is, and this retrograde happens between November 25th and December 15th. So at least we're not going to end the year with it. Okay. But this retrograde, the reason why it is so intense is because we have to completely change the way we think. Sagittarius is a sign of the higher mind. And some of us might feel, and most of us that have mutable signs here. So for example, Gemini, Sagittarius, Pisces, and Virgo. We're going to have to change the way we think about something, and most likely something important. Think about changing the way you see the world around you, whether you're ready or not, because at the end of the day, 2024 is a massive shift energetically in consciousness and in how we are experiencing the world. So this retrograde is really useful. And it's going to square Saturn. Mercury is going to square Saturn during that time. So this is not a time to avoid your responsibilities or kind of like leave things for later. This is a time to show up, to be present as much as possible. Because when Saturn is involved, we know authorities watching what you're doing. And this could be a boss, a parent, or even the government. So, okay, so we're done with the retrogrades of Mercury. And now I want to talk about the retrograde of Pluto. This is one of the retrogrades that normally is felt at a psychological level because Pluto rules psychology, the shadow, and the subconscious mind. On any other year, I would say this retrograde affects only the ones that are having a Pluto transit, which in this case are anyone with planets in the very last degrees of Capricorn and the very first degrees of Aquarius. But because Pluto is doing big things, as I talk about in my astrology video for 2024, because Pluto is literally shifting signs. This is the last bit. Pluto was like coming in and out of Aquarius in 2023. Well, this is the last time that Pluto is going to touch Capricorn for just 2 months, September and October. This retrograde packs a punch. But this retrograde is going to be more about collective change, about the old structures of our society finally collapsing and new energies coming in. New energies that are going to come in for the long run that involve social change, social justice, humanitarian work, technological advancements, community unity. A lot of political things are going to be changing too. So this retrograde is more of like a collective vibration, but like when so many things are happening at that level, well, we also get affected. I think that during this retrograde, which is from May 2nd to October 1st, a lot of people are going to quit their 9-to-5s, for example. A lot of people are just going to throw in the towel with corporate America or in other countries. This is a world thing. And they're going to start their own businesses. And we are already seeing this. I've literally never seen so many people unplugging from the matrix. And this retrograde is kind of like the last punch. And so it will be intense. It will be intense because what this retrograde is doing is it's wrapping up the energies that were with us for the past 15 years, which is during the time that Pluto was in Capricorn. And at the same time, we know that endings and beginnings and endings don't just happen like that. They overlap. And this retrograde is going to be intense at a collective level. And you will see that big things are going to happen all over the world that inspire us to rise up in the spirit of liberation and individuality, freedom. And that is what Pluto is going to do for society. Then we have the retrograde of Saturn, which is between June 29 and November 15th. This will affect more those with mutable signs as well. If you have any planets in between 12 and 19, I would say between 9 and 22 degrees of the mutable signs. So Gemini, Virgo, Sagittarius, and Pisces, you're going to feel this retrograde the most. This is the thing. The retrogrades of Saturn are really intense. I experienced one of the major turning points in my life in 2023 because of the retrograde of Saturn. A lot of things changed in my family. So Saturn is the so remember that I said that when a planet retrogrades, it's kind of taking a cosmic nap. Not Saturn. Because Saturn is relates to like responsibility, hard work, showing up, and all of that. Saturn actually grabs more power when it's retrograde. And because Saturn rules karma and time, this is when karmic adjustments happen. A lot of the retrogrades, especially the natal planets, Mercury, Mars, and Venus, bring the past, bring exes and things from the past. But the retrograde of Saturn specifically, brings karmic adjustments and even adjustments from past lives. And this doesn't necessarily need to be bad. I just want to make sure about that. Because Saturn gives us what we need, not what we want, like Jupiter. You have to trust that whatever happens during this retrograde is the medicine that you need, and that there's a big lesson for you there. I see Saturn as kind of like that, like tough grandma kind of planetary energy, kind of that tough grandma that teaches you. And the learnings are there for you. For me, the mantra that really speaks to me about Saturn retrograde is sometimes you win, sometimes you learn. If you have good karma though, Saturn is going to bring it to you too, because we have a tendency to think that karma is bad. No, karma is a natural law that reflects and works with polar opposites. But the truth is that this retrograde is going to be intense, and it is because also Jupiter and Saturn are going to square in 2024. I spoke a little bit about that in my other video, but I think that the retrograde is when the effects of this square, the effects of this contraction are going to show up for us, because Jupiter is going to help us grow. When it goes retrograde and then it squares Saturn is when we will see a contraction, but it is a natural event. It's always like growth, contraction. There is not such a thing as growth in a linear manner like we think it is. So the retrograde of Saturn is something important to keep in mind when it comes to showing up for your family, showing up for yourself. This is a period of intense, deep inner work as well, because Saturn is the master. Saturn is kind of the teacher planet that teaches us how to navigate some of life's toughest lessons, but also some of life's biggest joys. Next is the retrograde of Neptune, which goes between July 2nd and December 7th, between 27 and 29 degrees of Pisces. Neptune is getting closer and closer to its journey in Pisces. This retrograde is the most subtle, because it's really hard to pinpoint what's the planet. I have people come to me for readings and they know astrology, and they say, I can't really, there's something in there kind of like ruining my vibe, but I can't really tell what it is. Neptune. When you're having a Neptune transit, it's really hard to pinpoint where it's coming from or what's happening, what's the energy. When Neptune is direct, you can think about Neptune as kind of like the hypnotizer, or like kind of like that magician energy that like casts a spell over you, if it's in a sensitive point in your chart. And so you it's really easy to just get lost in this hypnotizing effect of like what you want things to be. And so when Neptune goes retrograde, unlike Saturn, it does loses that hypnotizing effect. And during Neptune retrogrades is when we realize the truth. The unwanted realities, like the rose-colored glasses come off. And you're there with the truth. This is a very deep transformation of Neptune. And we have a tendency to think that, oh, it's completely malefic. It's not. At the end of the day, the lesson here is love. Love, 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 compassion for everyone. That's the learning of Neptune retrograde. And I experienced this myself in 2023 along with the Saturn, because I was having those two transits. So the retrogrades really taught me that at the end of the day, it is how we love our people, how we just give love unconditionally. And there are some key dates here for you, but you will only experience this retrograde if you have something at the very late degrees of the mutable signs. As you can see, a lot of the retrogrades are going to affect mutable signs this year. There's like a pattern that I've been noticing. The mutable signs, especially in the middle and at the end of the mutable signs, we're going to experience a lot of change this year. Then Uranus, the retrograde of Uranus, which goes from September 1st to January 30th of 2025. The retrograde of Uranus just feels, to me, a little bit more manageable. Why? Because when Uranus is direct, it rules radical change, freedom, surprises. And it just rules the type of energy that's kind of below the surface and it's trying to come out and then just explodes. Uranus is going to do big things in 2024, like I explained in my other video, because it's going to receive a conjunction from Jupiter. It's going to form a sextile with Uranus, and it's going to start forming a trine with Pluto. And also, we're literally entering the age of Aquarius. So Uranus is kind of I would say, one of the big players of the astrology of 2024. And so when Uranus goes retrograde, to me, it just feels kind of like a timeout. The accelerated change that we've experienced during the rest of the year takes a break. It slows down. It's kind of like, I'm going to catch my breath. This is a time to catch your breath. If you have anything around the middle to late degrees of the fixed signs. So Taurus, Leo, Scorpio, and Aquarius. So you might be feeling like you're going to be given a chance to catch up. Okay. And also, you're going to be given the opportunity to really download brilliant information coming from Uranus. Because when Uranus is not retrograde, when it's direct, it's so overly charged with like Kundalini energy, creative energy, an energy of change and maverick, kind of like go against the establishment energy. When it retrogrades, this planet is more manageable. It is kind of like the planet that can bring like, okay, I get it now. How come I didn't think about this before? It is so obvious to me now. So to me, the retrograde of Uranus, and maybe because I have my sun conjunct Uranus, it just feels like more manageable because we're not going to experience so many like ups and downs and radical change and surprises and twists and turns. This is a time to to really take a step back and see why we had to experience so much change in the and especially in the spring, because when Jupiter conjuncts Uranus on April 20th, which is going to be felt between mid-May, between mid-March and mid-May, this now in the fall is when we realize why those changes needed to happen and why for some of us there was a redirection. Okay, the retrograde of Jupiter. For me, the retrograde of Jupiter really speaks of the highs and lows we experience as humans. It explains really well, like I was saying a little earlier, that growth isn't linear. We experience highs and lows and highs and lows always. And you will notice, I'm not a financial astrologer, but I have noticed that the retrogrades of Jupiter really relate to the economy, for example. Because Jupiter rules growth, expansion, spirituality. It is the biggest planet in the solar system. And Jupiter magnifies everything that it touches. By the time that Jupiter goes retrograde, it will be in Gemini. Jupiter enters Gemini on May 25th. And it's going to expand all of the things ruled by Gemini. Media, words, podcasts, commerce, all of that. And when it retrogrades, well, there's a contraction. The retrograde does extend to 2025, so it's October 9th to February 4th. And it is during this retrograde that Jupiter, like I said before, is going to square Saturn. So the contraction is going to be intense. If you're trying to grow, for example, this year, whatever you're trying to grow, I would do it before Jupiter goes retrograde, during all the spring and the summer. Because in the fall and the winter, there's going to be a contraction. That's how you work with retrogrades. That's why I'm giving you this information now, so you can have a big picture approach to your life. Push forward, plan, strategize, and work towards your goals in the spring and the summer. And then once Jupiter goes retrograde, there's a natural contraction. This always happens. And I see people getting really frustrated at the end of Jupiter retrogrades, always. And this is without even knowing astrology or without even knowing that Jupiter is retrograde, but it happens. It happened this year in 2023. The good news about Jupiter retrogrades is that they don't really bring that much difficulty. The difficulty that we experience during Jupiter retrogrades are a little bit more of us wanting to push forward things when the energy is at its slowest. Jupiter is a benefic at the end of the day. And I really love the retrogrades of Jupiter for second chances, to redoing things, to review your growth. For example, in this case, review all the growth that you experienced in the spring and the summer and fix things, adjust things in your growth strategies. That's really how we use Jupiter retrogrades in the best of ways. And you know when the planet's going to go direct. So fix everything during the retrograde and then make your move once Jupiter goes direct. And the last retrograde that I want to talk about here is the retrograde of Mars. Completely keeping it real here. This is by far the most intense retrograde of 2024 and 2025 because it begins on December 26th and it extends to February 23rd. The retrogrades of Mars as a Scorpio, I find are the most intense. And I think that a lot of people agree with me. Because Mars rules drive, sex, assertion, ambition. It is the planet that gets you up in the morning and tells you, let's go. And this obviously has a lot to do with your relationship with Mars. This is the most intense retrograde for a few reasons. It's going to happen in 2 signs, Leo and Cancer. If you download my guide, you will get all this. So we already have 2 different energies. And during this retrograde, Mars is going to oppose Pluto, which is, at that time now, it is in Aquarius. A lot of intense collective events will occur during this retrograde. But this is the great thing about astrology. When you know about this, you are prepared. You're ready for this. You know what's happening. So whatever collective changes take place in 2023, due to Pluto moving into Aquarius and also backtracking to Capricorn, Mars is going to challenge that. Mars is going to challenge all these new waves of energy and all of this change. This will be an intense time, but it is a time in which we are also all healing our masculine energy. At the end of the day, that's where the North Node is, in a Mars-ruled sign, in Aries. So this is when we get to really get to see what is that we need to heal about our masculine energy here on Earth, and all of us. I'm not talking about men. I'm talking about masculine energy, which is in every one of us. But you're prepared. During Mars retrograde, it is never a good time to begin a new relationship. It is never a good time to get married or launch anything that you want to be successful. And this is a long time, because the retrogrades of Mars are because it's a natal planet, we feel them the most. And they're also very long. And they're very long because Mars only goes retrograde every 2 years. So that's awesome. Mars is the planet that goes the least retrograde, thankfully. And the good news is that Venus does not have a retrograde in 2024. We already experienced that in the summer of 2023. However, like I was saying, Venus has kind of show-ups, has a role in all of the retrogrades of Mercury. So we will still experience change in relationships. And Mars is also a relationship planet, along with Venus. But if you download my guide, you're going to be prepared for all of this. It's completely free. And it is an instant download on my website, www.naramon.com. Or you can follow the link here that I'm going to post on the video. That was it for retrogrades. I hope you like this video. If you did, I invite you to subscribe to my channel, or drop me a comment or an emoji, or ask me a question about the presentation. I am super grateful for you being here today. And as a friendly reminder, I offer readings, astrology, tarot, and Akashic Records readings on my website, either on Zoom or via recording. I'm doing recording readings now too for people who just want to ask a simple question or who live in a different part of the world. I'm based in California. And if you're in the Bay Area, I also offer readings in person. Thank you so much for listening, and I will talk to you soon.